harm reduction is not new. It's something that has existed in cultures for a long time. It's something that exists in community today. And it's a way that we can reevaluate healthcare systems and the way that people deserve autonomy and health no matter where they're at. It's also about accessibility, and it's about people being able to really be themselves, because a lot of the time harm reduction really is supporting people that don't feel seen and supported in a larger world. And oftentimes that is and can be drug users, and that can be sex workers and people that are absolutely crucial to our communities. And I also think too, like harm reduction's for everybody. Oftentimes people think that a drug user or like people who are sex workers or whichever, like look like one thing, and it just doesn't. Like we all, like people who use drugs are everywhere, and people that benefit from harm reduction services are everywhere. And that can be a seatbelt, and that can go towards HIV and Hep C testing. It can go towards fentanyl and xylazine testing. It can go to overdose prevention sites, and it can go towards safe supply. So it's essentially, long story short, it's honoring and supporting the autonomy and health of drug users, and just creating a better world in a system that has failed so many people.
Naloxone, it only works for opioids, but opioids are often mixed with other drugs, even if people don't expect it. One really great thing about naloxone is that it is incredibly safe. So it's highly recommended to, if you suspect that there's an opioid overdose, to use naloxone.
If you come across someone that you think is experiencing an opioid overdose, there are steps that you can take in order to check in with that person. There's a difference between being under the influence of a substance or really high. Someone also could be experiencing different medical issues. And so we really want to make sure that we're checking in not only with that person, but ourselves too. So the first thing that I say is to use verbals. So we'll say like, hey, my name's Marissa. I'm gonna administer Narcan, or like, hey, how are you? Can you hear me? So using your verbals, those things actually can be a lot stronger than we think, especially if someone is not overdosing. Oftentimes when people hear the word Narcan, they're like, whoa, 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 don't administer Narcan, I'm okay. Besides verbal communication, how we can check in with people is physical identification, such as like pinhole pupils, raspy or inconsistent breathing, sometimes no breathing at all. There can be discoloration of fingertips and lips. Another thing too that we can do is a physical kind of check-in, which is like doing a sternum rub. So you take your hand like this and you rub your knuckles on the sternum. And if you like do that to yourself, it sucks and it's not pleasant. And so oftentimes like someone can respond to that being like, ouch, or like, I'm fine. So kind of go over that again. Use your verbals. Hey, like, I'm Marissa, I'm gonna administer Narcan, or like, hey, checking in, can you hear me? No verbal, go ahead and do your physical check-ins such as pinhole pupils, fingertips and lips. There's discoloration. With breathing, sometimes it can be shallow, raspy, or no breathing at all. And then we can do our sternum check, which again, you take your fist and your knuckles here and then rub them on the sternum here. So we checked in with that person, no response. So we're gonna go ahead and go to our next step, which is we are gonna call 911. The reason that we at Southside Harm Reduction recommend calling 911 is because this person could be experiencing other medical issues or concerns. And so that is why we recommend that. So when you call for EMS, what you wanna say is, I'm with someone who's not breathing and I need EMS right away. Once you've called 911, you need to get that person ready to go to administer naloxone. So the person experiencing the overdose will be on their back and you will get your syringe. So we have this pack here. It's in an amber bag. Southside in each bag packs 4 doses of naloxone, which looks like this. Sometimes they have an orange cap. and 4 syringes. Okay. And these two are a pair. They're like together forever. You don't want to cross over. We don't want to reuse syringes. And once this medicine is used, this vial is no longer of use to us.
People wonder why, because you're using the same syringe on the same person. However, like when you're drawing up the naloxone, you're often holding the vial of naloxone. It's easy to poke yourself in the finger, and so using a new syringe prevents any sort of cross blood contamination or contact. And so that goes both ways. So if you poke your finger, use a new syringe so you aren't exposing the person who's overdosing to your blood as well.
What we'll want to do is take the syringe out of the packaging. And then our syringe is almost ready. Something to know ahead of time is that sometimes these tips can come off. Do not panic, just twist it back on, obviously with the syringe capped. And then we'll get our naloxone ready. First step is to just pop this cap off. And you'll see that there's a rubber barrier here. That's why we're not gonna stress of the medicine spilling out of the vial. So what we'll wanna do is uncap the syringe. Do not try to recap the syringe after you've used it. Put the syringe point through the barrier here. And then make sure that your needle point is underneath the liquid of the naloxone and just draw it back. Pull it back as much as possible. Get as much medicine as you can. If you've missed some, that's okay. And then you're good to go. So the points of administration are, it's an intramuscular medicine, so it'll be administered in your arms here or the thighs. And what it means by intramuscular is that it's not intravenous, so we're not going to need to be worrying about if the syringe has air bubbles in it, and we're not administering in a vein. So don't worry about air bubbles. So what you'll want to do is take your syringe and administer in your muscle point here. It's just like a dart. You're at a bar or you're playing darts, wherever you play darts. And it's just like a dart. Just get it in through the muscle there and then administer. Push down on the syringe.
The syringes that we provide with our kits, they can go through pants, they can go through shirts. The one thing that you want to watch out for is if people have phones or keys or anything in their pockets, to try to avoid that. The naloxone, when being injected into muscle, it just takes a while to get absorbed and to get into people's brain where it works. And so it takes about 2 to 5 minutes for it to become active. And so in that time, we recommend doing rescue breathing. After 2 to 5 minutes of doing rescue breathing, if the person still hasn't woken up, then we recommend administering another dose in the same fashion. Taking a new unused syringe, popping it off the top of a new vial, drying it up, and administering it. You can administer it in the same spot. You can administer it in another spot. But as long as it's in the arms or the legs. Then at that point, you go back to administer rescue breathing and go back and forth until paramedics arrive or the person wakes up. Another thing with the IM syringes is that it can be challenging to draw it up. And so if you are having trouble or don't feel comfortable doing that, there are often other people around at the time an overdose happens, and you can ask other folks if anyone feels comfortable administering naloxone. The same thing is true of administering rescue breaths. If you don't feel comfortable administering rescue breaths, maybe there's someone else there who is, and it's always okay to ask. That's how you administer naloxone with the IM. There's also nasal naloxone, and that is a little bit more of a simple process. So the nasal naloxone comes in a nasal spray that you can squeeze to activate it. You squeeze the plunger, and then the spray comes out. And so what you do with nasal naloxone is you follow all of the same steps, except when you're administering naloxone. What you do is you get the nasal naloxone, you stick it the administration side as far up the person's nose as possible, and then push the plunger so it sprays out all of the naloxone. Something that people have done before is test it out before using it, but each spray is just one spray, so you don't need to test it. You just put it right in someone's nose and squeeze the plunger. And it's also okay if you have both the nasal spray and the IM. You can use both. You can you can use the nasal and then the IM, or you can use the IM and then the nasal.
So this is a CPR face mask here. They come in all these little kits where you carry on your keychain there, which is how I had mine when I first saved someone there. And it comes up, it has, this process to get into it. And it's one where it's just a one way. So you open it up, and when you put it on the person, it's able for you to breathe into them and not to get out there. So they do got the directions here, and they show you which side is for which. I got a mask here. So if I was the one overdosing, this would be going on like this on me, and vice versa. And the person will be putting their mouth right there. And this is where the other person be sitting there breathing in. And it's a one-time use. It's not something that you're supposed to be using over and over again.
It can take anywhere from one dose of naloxone to like many doses of naloxone for someone to wake up. Something that we're hearing from participants and seeing is that it's taking more and more doses of naloxone to revive someone. But with that being said, there can be a wide variety of reactions when people wake up. Sometimes people come to pretty fast. Sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes people, like, their breathing slowly starts coming back, and they might start moving a little bit. And at that point, it's good to put someone on their side, that person on their side, and give them space.
Everyone has a different response when they come back. Some people are like crying and they don't really know what happened to them. And some people are like fucking pissed because they're like, you just made me sick. Like, because something that happens when you administer Narcan is that you'll put someone into withdrawal. And that's a really shitty feeling. And people are going to get really sick. And so people might not be really happy with you. And another thing is like, yeah, people might just be confused. So one thing I think is really valuable is to like welcome people back. Like really humanize people in a situation. It's traumatic not only for like the person experiencing the opioid overdose, but also like administering. So just make sure you welcome that person back and like honor that and like really say, hey, I'm glad you're here. You overdosed, I administered Narcan, and here's like the rest of my kit if you need it for later. Or here's some water. Let me know how I can support you right now. And the reason that I say you can give people the rest of the Narcan that you might not have administered is because this medicine is also time sensitive in the sense of it lasts for 30 to 90 minutes. And so when the naloxone wears off, we could potentially, like, that person might go back into an overdose. And so we want to make sure that like this person or their family or the person that they're with can look out for them too. Another thing that I will say is that when EMS arrives, make sure that you tell them, I administered Narcan, I administered 4 doses, and just let them know what happened and what you saw. Another thing too that I like to let people know and like remind them of is that when you call 911, likely there will be police force that also come. And so, like, let people know that because there are people who are living with warrants, there's people who have trauma with the police. There's a multitude of reasons as to why people may or may not want to be around law enforcement. And so, I like to let people know if there are multiple people present so they have the autonomy to choose that, whether they want to be present or not.
In Minnesota, we have what's called a Good Samaritan law. It means that people who are the person that's responding to an overdose and the person that's overdosing are both protected, both for administering the naloxone and should be protected against like drug charges if cops show up. And important caveats of this law, also known as Steve's Law, are that it only works for people, it only protects people, the person responding and the person who's overdosing. And it doesn't protect people if they have active warrants. It doesn't protect people from getting CPS involved. It doesn't protect people from landlords kicking them out because of like the noise and commotion that there might be. So if there are people around that don't need to be there in order to respond to the overdose, we recommend that they leave. Something else that can happen is that if police show up, they might put people in handcuffs. They might put people even in the back of a cop car, but they legally cannot arrest you for administering naloxone or for having had overdosed.
But Narcan, oftentimes through like harm reduction programs, is that it'll come in an amber bag like this. It's because it's light sensitive, kind of like can't really see through it. And so the best way to store it is out of direct sunlight and to just keep it at room temperature. If you're at home, like have a designated place for your Narcan where everyone in the household knows where it is. Have it not in a window, just put it in a drawer or something. Same thing with like at your workplace or a school or like a community space. Make sure that like you talk about where your Narcan is and have a plan because again, we don't want to be in these situations where you have the medicine but you don't know where it is or you have the medicine and you don't know how to administer it. And part of doing this is to like be together in that and support one another in that. So just make sure it's out of direct sunlight. It's not sitting in your glove box. It's not in a refrigerator. Just have it room temp, in a drawer, in your bag, just somewhere that you know where it is as well.
People have used naloxone that has been expired for years and it still works. Someone is overdosing and that's the naloxone that you have, we recommend using it. It likely will still work. It might just be a little bit weaker. You can also always get new naloxone from a local syringe exchange harm reduction program like Southside. I really recommend just always carrying naloxone on you, not only just because if it's kept in like a car or a place that gets like heat swings or it can damage the naloxone. But the first time I responded to an overdose, it was with someone that I didn't know. They were at a bus stop and they were passed out, and I checked on the person. They weren't responding. I said, "Hey, can you hear me?" And there's still no response, and so I did a sternum rub, eventually like administered naloxone, did rescue breathing, and all of that. And it was a really intense experience. Something that was really surprising to me that I didn't think about beforehand was just how serious it can feel administering a drug to someone, especially with a syringe, who you don't know. Just following, and so like in the moment I was like, what if this person isn't overdosing? What if they're just unconscious and I'm like injecting them with this drug? And like even though I had done these trainings and like know that it's completely fine to administer naloxone, and it's like the right thing to do, I still had those thoughts. And so it took what felt like 5-10 minutes. I don't know if it actually took that long because like when you're responding, just time goes so slow. The person in front of you is like not breathing, and it's such an intense experience. And so after some time, their breathing started to increase, and they eventually like came to, and it felt like it took forever for the naloxone to work. Dealing with that afterwards, it was really important for me to like talk about it with people and like have someone to talk to. And so being aware of like responding to an overdose can be just like a really heavy thing.
We want to make sure that not only is that person welcome back, but like we need to take care of ourselves too. And that looks like, you know, like reaching out to somebody maybe that you do outreach with, or like someone that you love a lot that you trust, or someone that you feel comfortable just being like, I need you right now. It's good for us to make sure that like we take care as much as we emphasize other people caring for themselves and us caring for others.